institutional repositories. I spoke about electronic publishing, and I talk a little bit more about activities in Germany, how is to create an institutional repository. 11 years later, this certificate, which I recommended you, has its fourth version, and we have a very, very good feedback from the German and the European Commission to this. Today, the changing world, we heard a lot about this. I will speak about research data. Yesterday, Christopher Stewart spoke already about research data. Research data as a part of possible services for libraries and possible services for computing center or media center. Of course, it is necessary that a university should discuss the problem of research data in order to support the researchers and scientists. Today I will speak about research data, about function and requirements of research data, and I will speak about the experiences of Humboldt University in Germany, where we organized an online survey with the researchers and scientists of the university. And at the end I will speak a little bit about a special project called the Registry of Research Data Repositories, or re3data.org. But at first, let me speak about one of my favorite slides. It is a slide from Michael Nentwich. Michael Nentwich is a member of the Austrian Academy of Science and a member of Max Planck Institute in Cologne. And he tried to describe the research process. And he found out that we will have three main processes: the knowledge production, the communication, and the distribution of knowledge. And the fourth one is the organization. And my aim today is to speak about data production, about data management, about data processing and information gathering as part of the knowledge production. We have an overlap between knowledge production and communication. That means knowledge representation. And you have, in this field, you have communication, the discussion of research results, so we have cooperation, evaluation, and of course, we have publication. In most cases, we are discussing about publication as a kind of communication and also as a kind of distribution of knowledge. And we have the organization of the whole scientific process. So if we are speaking, or if I will speak about data production and research data, so you have at the very beginning of the research process, and you can have it at the end of the process, of the research process. That's why research data are the basis of research, and research data are also the results of the research. Christopher yesterday mentioned a little bit more about his view to research data, and I fully agree with him. So this is my definition of research data. That means digital data being a descriptive part or result of a research process. This process covers all stages of research, ranging from research data generation, which may be an experiment in the science, an empirical study in the social sciences, or observation of cultural phenomena, to the publication of research results. Digital research data occur in different data types, levels of aggregation and data formats informed by the research disciplines and their methods. With regards to the purpose of access for use and reuse of research data, digital research data are of no value without the metadata and proper documentation describing their context and the tools used to create, store, adapt, and analyze them. So that is our view to research data. But if you are thinking about what we have to do as a university to support our researchers, it's this view to handling research data, to manage research data, to store it. So at first, you have to know which kind of research data is it really, which you want to support. That's why we organized this online survey for my university. We asked more than 2,000 different researchers and scientists, and got an answer from about 500 colleagues. So of course, no problem, or we expected it. We have in most cases research data as part of text documents, of course. Then we have it as a part of experiments, as survey or interviews, observation, statistic and reference data, simulation, images, log files, usage data, and so on. So if you will build up in service, so you have to look to this different kind of data, and you have to ask what will be the best opportunity to support this kind of data. Another approach is from Jim Gray. He described in 4 levels the different levels of research data. So at first you can have raw data and data sets. Above that, data collection and structured databases, process data and data representation, and then on the top, publications with data. So this is another approach. If you want to support managing of research data, you can use these different levels, and you can organize the services depending on these different levels. Yesterday we heard it already. Discussion about research data is in most different institutions very, very important. So the German Parliament created a so-called Enquete Commission for Internet and Digital Society. Excuse me, this is German, that's why my translation. The main intention of this commission was the conservation of the digital curation assets. So they pointed out or recommended that the data as a result of public funded research have to be open in standardized repositories. That is not only a German idea. Of course, you will find it in a couple of other countries too. So the Royal Society wrote in this paper, scientists should communicate the data they collect and the models they create to allow free and open access. And we have another example from the European Commission where you can read supporting scientific data infrastructure for dissemination of knowledge, research information, and funding entities to address all stages of the data life cycle. A lot of people are discussing all these different things of an infrastructure for research data. So a special group from UK, Netherlands, Denmark and Germany, the so-called Knowledge Exchange Group, wrote a paper about the infrastructure for research data, and they found out that there are 4 different points which are necessary or which you have to fulfill in order to support the managing of research data. At first, it is the incentive for scholars, training the researchers and users, building an infrastructure, and funding this infrastructure. So, if you speak about research data, so you have to ask what are really the so-called function of research data. The first of this is a so-called instrument of proof. Instrument of proof, that means that we need the research data in order to find the starting point of the research and also to have the chance to follow the ideas of the researchers. In most cases you need research data to understand the chosen method. The second point of function of research data is a point of communication. If we are thinking about the discussion between different researchers, So often they discuss research data, how they are to interpret, how they are to see in the context, and so on. The third function is the so-called reputation. And there are some special fields which it is already today quite necessary to publish research data for the whole community. One of the best examples for that are the so-called research ships. They are inside the Antarctic, for example, collected data about the climate, data about the temperature, data about the quality of the water, and so on. Outside the ship, these kinds of data are points of research. Both are important, the people on the ship, but also the researchers in the lab. And the fourth point is the reuse of research data. It is a very important function for research data if it is possible to reuse this data. Nowadays, in most cases, the cost for the different experiments are growing and growing, and it could be important to save money to use research data more than once. You already know the Large Hadron Collider, I believe so, in Geneva, the European Center for Nuclear Research, and it is extremely expensive there to organize the experiments, and that's why it is not possible to pay this money only from one country. So 27 different countries from Europe and all over the world are a member of this research, and the research data will reuse more than once. So if these are the functions, so if you are thinking about a publication of research data, so you need you have to fulfill some requirements for the research data. The first is the accessibility. That means readable and usable for the target group. It is easier to say about this than to organize it. Sustainability, that means permanent accessible. Traceability, that means a reflection of the whole research process. Authentication, that means credibility of authorship. Quality assurance, that means is there a peer review process also for research data. Assessment, speed of publishing, integrity are very, very important things which are necessary if you are interested in to manage research data, to offer it for reuse in it. In our online survey, we ask our colleagues to indicate the types of the different data types more specifically. So, of course, we have the text, but we have a lot of spreadsheets, more than 50%. We have databases as a basic of research. We have programs and application. We have images, data specific for your field or instrument, dependent on the different scientific field. We have audio files and video files here as special types of data. If you look a little bit more in detail, so you can see that the data types are a result of measurement series. They are statistical analysis data, we have spectral analysis data from surveys, question data from geoinformation system, remote sensing, and so on. So you can see in this answers in such a university like my Humboldt University, that is a so-called classical university, that means with all disciplines without the engineering disciplines. We have a very heterogeneous landscape for research data. And if we are thinking about some services for all the researchers and scientists of the university, so it was one of our main questions: which kind of support do you wish from the university? What should we do in order to support you managing your your research data? So first of all, more than 70% secure and backup storage for my research data. Of course, that is quite normally. But the second point is advice and guidance on legal issues. Legal issues, how to handle research data, which kind of research data I can use, how I have to handling sensitive data, and so on. The third point, guidance for technical issues, guidance of citing and publishing data. How can I cite research data, and so how is it to organize? The answer of this question is the first point of my university to develop a so-called policy for research data management. And in this policy we try to describe how a researcher should manage the research data and which kind of support he will get or she will get from the university. In most cases, research data will store in a repository. Yesterday, Christopher gave us some examples in this field. Here are some additional examples. We spoke about, or we hear about GEO as a genomic data repository. We have Pangea, this site, as a data repository for earth and environmental science. There are international repositories where a researcher from this field can store his research data. There are some rules in these data repositories, and the research data get support from the operator of these different systems. We know also some other data repositories all over the world. This here is so-called specific data repository. We have the scientific drilling database, or we have the Pentanen project as a special research repository. And we have also so-called institutional data repository, with for example from the Purdue University from US, or the University of Munich had also such a repository. All in all, we can say there are a couple of data repositories all over the world, and it is very important to find the right repository. What is the right repository for me as a researcher or a scientist? Where could I store my research data? And that's why we started a special project called Registry of Research Data Repository, or re3data.org. And the aims of this repository is to be a global registry of research data repositories. We will cover research data repositories from all academic disciplines. We will help researchers, funding bodies, publishers, scholarly institutions to find a research data repository, and aim to promote a culture of sharing, increased access and better visibility of research data. So before we started with our project, we were thinking what are the points of discussion, or which are the criteria which a repository, a data repository, should fulfill in order to be a usable data repository to be. So we found 7 criteria. At first, every repository needs a so-called additional information about this service. They need a special policy, research data policy. They need some sentences. How is the access organized? Is it an open access repository? Is it a restricted access, or is it a closed repository? Are there any licenses necessary? If they are fulfill technical standards. Yesterday we spoke about digital object identifier or URIs. So is there any chance for URIs in this repository, and so on? And so we reviewed a couple of different repositories, at present about 611. And if you are looking to this website, you will find a review research of our looking to the different repositories. So for an example, we have with a special license with an own policy. And the other one, the inorganic crystal structure database, has special information about the repository, and restricted access, so every user has to ask if they can use the data who he finds there. Special licenses are necessary, and so on. And Pangea, I already mentioned it. So that is a result of the review process. The basic idea and the aim from us was that every user of such a repository can find at the first view which kind of repository is it, and is it useful for me or not. So if you are looking to one repository, so you will have a comprehensive data set. Of course, the name, for example, Pangea, that means additional name, publishing network, for geosciences, and I went to environmental data, so an additional description with subjects, biological, geodesy, and so on, this additional description, the content, and so on, who is responsible for this research data. So a researcher in this field can say, okay, is it the right repository for me, or is it not? Of course, you can search in this database if you are looking for a special repository for your research field, and you can use it also as a researcher or scientist to find the right repository, but you can also use it as a librarian or computer scientist who is asked by a researcher, what is the right repository for me? So you can look at it, freedata.org, and you will find the right repository. Is this repository already exists, or need I any support by my own university or my scientific community? That is the basic idea of research data and of a special service with this project, the Registry of Research Data Repository. Okay, thank you very much.